Hi folks, welcome to Comics Are Awesome, where we bring you everything awesome in comics. I'm JD, and I'm kind of pissed off today. By my very nature, I'm a glass half full kind of guy. You don't make a show called Comics Are Awesome unless you plan on celebrating comics, not bitching and moaning. But this is a rant that has to be done. So batten down the hatches, there's a storm a-brewing. We're going to take a look at Thor and racism. Let's take a look at Thor. The Norse god of thunder has existed in mythology for thousands of years, but it became a particular note to comic fans in the summer of 1962 when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby brought him to the funny pages. Here they reinvented Thor. When Dr. Donald Blake would slam his walking stick on the ground, he would become the fair and noble mighty Thor. Taking his hammer Mjolnir, which only the most worthy could wield, Thor would fight his evil brother Loki, the beguiling enchantress, the fearsome executioner, as well as supervillains like the Absorbing Man, the Wrecking Crew, and Radioactive Man. And what does this have to do with Norse mythology? Not a lot, really. Oh, there are definitely elements taken directly from the myths, but really Lee and Kirby just often would crib the names or most basic concepts and rework them to suit their needs. How so? Well, for example, Thor in the comics is blonde, but traditionally he was a redhead. Odin of myth had only one eye, but in the comics he's normally portrayed as having two. Heck, Thor's very personality has changed. The humble and noble god normally portrayed in the comics is at odds with the brutish show-off of legend. So imagine my confusion when a hate group called the Council of Conservative Citizens began to protest the upcoming adaptation of Marvel's Thor. Why? Well, because they cast Idris Elba, best known as Stringer Bell in the HBO TV series The Wire, in the role of Heimdall. Now this is what Heimdall looks like in the comics. There is a slight difference. It's the goatee, obviously. Heimdall of the comics is long and pointed, and Elba keeps his much more neatly groomed. But no, of course, the group is concerned primarily with the fact that Elba is black. The CCC has stated that on their website that Marvel has declared war on Norse mythology.
What's that? War were declared.
Okay, melodramatic much? Well, I confess the notion of a bunch of modern office workers taking on an army of Vikings does make me giggle like a child. There's no war being declared here. They're making a movie. The movie isn't going to go and magically change any established books of mythology you have on your shelf. College professors aren't going to start using the Thor film as a study guide any more than they might use Hercules, the Legendary Journeys, to study Greco-Roman myths. This leads to my next point. This isn't Thor, this is Marvel's Thor. While they did change the color of Heimdall's skin from how it's traditionally portrayed, if you're so upset about the changes made to mythology, where were you nearly 50 years ago when Lee and Kirby made these other changes to the Norse myths? I mean, let's face it, beyond the surface details I mentioned earlier, like Thor's hair color, the comics feel pretty different from the myths. They're less standard Viking fantasy fare and more cosmic craziness with a good dose of modern superhero storytelling. Asgard, as designed by Jack Kirby, doesn't resemble any place made of wood and stone, but rather a futuristic fantasy world. Oh wait, none of those matter, because they're not about giving a black man a job. But the horse-faced alien called Beta Ray Bill wielding the power of Thor is perfectly fine. No wait, that argument's stupid. Which is why my final point is logic. Now I know that trying to argue rationally with racists is fairly futile, and their hatred isn't born from a point of logic, but rather a fear of things that are different. But making them look stupid tickles my dark soul in ways I can't begin to describe. The CCC state that they believe the United States is a European country and that the Americans are part of the European people. That the American people and government should remain European in their composition and character. Okay. First off, someone needs to go back to grade school social studies, because America is about as European as Dick Van Dyke's Cockney accent.
Well, not Royal Academy, I suppose. Still, they're better than a finger in the eye, ain't they?
Also, Idris Elba, yeah, he was born in London, England. He's in fact more European than Chris Hemsworth, who was born in Australia and plays Thor, or Jamie Alexander, the American actress who played the goddess Sif, or any of these Shire-looking rejects at the CCC. Also, before anyone asks, Actually, there were native Africans in Viking-era Scandinavia. Vikings being the peaceful European lot that I'm sure the CCC thinks is the very model of modern civility, sailed across much of the world, reaching not only North America long before Columbus, but North Africa as well, where they would pillage settlements and bring back slaves called thralls. These thralls, however, could be freed by their masters and even by their own freedom given time, which means that there were likely free black men wandering around during Viking-era Scandinavia. You know, for a group of people who oppose the mixing of races and people denigrating European history, their understanding of it is pretty limited. I did about 30 minutes worth of research for this review, and I feel like I probably know more than they did before they started their boycott campaign. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if they protested Marvel calling the magical rainbow that connects Earth to Asgard the Bifrost Bridge, instead wanted to call it the totally not bi we just experimented in college that one time bridge. Oh, and the bridge is now made of puppies instead of rainbows. Also, keep in mind that the whole boycott is for a character who only appears in a couple seconds of the trailer and is likely to be a very minor character. If I wasn't crying on the inside, I'd be screaming on the outside. Oh, there's so much stupidity. Look, I realize that racism is bad and full of idiots isn't exactly the revelation of the century. But goddammit, comics are awesome. And I want these fuckers as far away from my hobby as I can get them. So I'm getting the word out, and you should too.
Cross the rainbow bridge of Asgard, where the booming heavens roar. You'll behold in breathless wonder the God of thunder, mighty Thor.
Halt and identify yourself.
Come, Heimdall. Do you not recognize the handmaiden to the royal court of Asgard?
Aye, but you could also be that evil son of Odin's Loki.